It's been quite a dry spell. And in fact, the person I'm running against is an entrenched 13-term Republican. And I am running on what I would call, good governance, dedication to public service. I really want to modernize that office data-wise and to make it technology-friendly and for our clients. People don't really know what the office does. It is essentially the central location for property information throughout Rockingham County. And we not only have to modernize that office, but we also have to get it prepared for the next 2 decades. Because one of the things that we have learned in this pandemic is that confidence matters, and it matters at all levels of government. And one of the campaign motto that I thought deeply about is that good governance is contagious. If you start at the bottom, if you start in the middle, if you start at the top, it really does matter. And so I have been, as I said, I have been a longtime political journalist and a business reporter as well. I have lived in New Hampshire now 4+ decades. I'm a native left coaster who, after I was in the military intelligence branch of the Army, so I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I ended up in New Hampshire and I've stayed because I love the place. So I finished my college at Keene State, and then I did graduate school at the University of New Hampshire. And I am the author of a couple books that were political satires that were just a little bit ahead of this time. So I have to tell you, it scares the hell out of me that I actually did predict Trumpism in all its grotesque madness, which is something that kind of still bothers me. I didn't realize it was going to get this bad. But one of the things that I have found, as I said, is that people are excited. I'm not a placeholder candidate. I am running to win. And one of the things I need from you folks, please go to my website, McCordNHcandidate.com. I've also put it in the chat level. And I need your support. Help me out, place signs in Hampton. That would be fantastic. If you can donate $1, $2, $5 to my campaign, we are making every penny count. I just had a good batch of donations and was able to order my first batch of 100-yard signs, and they are going to be all over the county. And one of the things I found is that it's a very big county. It's more like a congressional district, so it's going to be a challenge. But I think that people are excited about my running and meeting me. So I think that's it for now. Go to the website, find out. I've got a pretty lively bio there, and you can read more about what I plan to do with the Register of Deeds. And if there are any questions, please talk to me. I'm all ears.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for your running and your comments. And we did put a link to your website on the Hampton Dems page. So if anybody has any questions, hopefully they can reach Michael through that. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. So as we all know, this campaign is different from any other. Normally, we would all now be sitting in Tony and Jim Trotzer's backyard, and we'd be going door to door to meet and try to persuade our neighbors to vote for our candidates. That isn't going to happen this year. So we need to figure out different ways to connect with our voters. And as I said earlier, if you want to text JOIN to 1-678-408-4933, we will be able to stay in touch with you through text messages in the future. It's also why the work that our next guest and the dedicated team that she works with is going to be so important. So please welcome Morgan Baraines from Organized New Hampshire. Morgan?
Hi, everybody. So excited to be here. I know it's a little different that we can't do it in person, but I think it just shows how amazingly dedicated the town of Hampton is that we could all still come together over Zoom. So I'm very excited to be here. As Chris said, I work with the Organized New Hampshire team, which is the New Hampshire Democratic Party's coordinated campaign for the 2020 election cycle. I am the field organizer for the greater Hampton area. So I recognize quite a few of you. I know I've spoken with you or worked with you, so welcome. And yeah, I just wanted to, take a few minutes and, let you guys know what we're really doing over here at Organize New Hampshire. We just finished up with the convention, so it's really go time. And this past week has been our week of action, followed up by our weekend of action. So we have a whole lot of phone banking taking place both today and tomorrow, just to, reach out to as many voters as we can to kind of ride the high of the convention, get people energized and everything like that. So but also, going forward, we still want to continue talking to as many voters as we possibly can. We have the Republican convention coming up next week, and we want to try to, fight back against any misinformation that might be spread during that time. Our biggest initiative right now is making sure that everybody in New Hampshire has the means to vote and vote in the most safe and effective way for them possible this year. Voting in the midst of a pandemic is quite a bit different than historically in New Hampshire, where everybody votes in person. Only about 10% of people will usually vote via absentee ballot, and that is just very different this year. So our initiative is reaching out to as many voters across New Hampshire as possible and talking with them through the absentee voting process, making sure that they have those resources. We also have set up some amazing teams across the state of people who are working to deliver absentee ballot request forms to those who weren't able to get them on their own. So that's where, the combination between the phone banking and then also putting that into action and helping these people and still making sure everything is socially distant, but giving them those resources it's been amazing. We've gotten in touch with so many people who have, been able to now vote when they might not have been able to before for fears of their safety and everything like that. So that's definitely our biggest initiative. And we're so lucky here in New Hampshire to work with every single Democrat up and down the ballot, not only working with the Joe Biden campaign, as well as Chris Pappas, who, is amazing. I always love hearing him speak. But we also get to work with state representatives and everybody up and down the ballot. And I know I recognize quite a few of you here who are running, and I, thank you so much. It's definitely the work that you guys do that will make a huge difference this year. So yeah, if you're, ever looking to get involved, we have tons of volunteer opportunities. We're rolling out text banking, so you can text volunteers. We have phone banking happening. As of this week, every single day of the week, we have it taking place. So we're, really looking to work with you guys and make sure that everybody who wants to get involved has the best way to get involved. So
Morgan, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I am going to pop all of my information in the chat. You can either email me, call me, text me. I know we have a Seacoast Democrats Facebook group for Organized New Hampshire. You can feel free to join that and message me there. Honestly, whatever is the easiest way. I will definitely I will put all of my information in the chat, as well as we did just roll out an Organized New Hampshire website. So I will also put that there.
Okay, great. Thanks for
so much.
thanks for all the work that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
So now we have another one of our unsung heroes running for office in Rockingham County, Ty Quinn, who is running for County Treasury. Ty, you want to share a few words with us?
Hi, thanks, Chris. My name is Ty Quinn, and I am running for County Treasurer. Can you hear me? I just unmuted my phone.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so what I would like to do is introduce myself. I have 4 boys, 4 adult children, and luckily one of them is with me here today, and he's going to help me with my website. And so I think what I want to do is I'm running for County Treasurer, and I want to help people be able to pay their taxes. And I want to make it clear that it's going to be tough this year because with COVID, everything that's happening, I want to try and make a difference and help. I've got my whole career, I've been in finance with Wheelabrator and with Honeywell, and so I think I can make a difference in trying to give back to the community. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ty. And I guess you're going to have a website up soon, so people will be able to connect with you that way. Okay, great. In 2018, we helped turn the tide in New Hampshire. For the first time ever, all of the state representatives from Hampton's state representative district are Democrats, which is something we're very proud of. That helped to restore a Democratic majority in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. And here to tell us what that meant, to share some thoughts on why it's so important that we not only retain that majority, but expand it, is the Deputy Speaker of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, Lucy Weber. Lucy?
Hi, thank you, and thank you all for having me. And I'm actually the Speaker Pro Tem rather than the Deputy Speaker,
okay.
who's Karen Ebel. But it's an easy mistake to make because we just kind of share her job because we've never had a Democratic Speaker Pro Tem before, so I'm kind of inventing things as I go along. But I'm here to bring you the greetings of Steve Shurtleff, who is very sorry he couldn't be with you today, and the Democratic caucus in the New Hampshire House. And I want to start by thanking all of the activists, all of you who sent us the delegation that you sent us, because it makes an enormous difference being in the majority rather than the minority. And we have so many accomplishments, and I have 5 minutes, that I'm not going to talk about our accomplishments because we would be here for half an hour. But I am going to just point out a couple. One of the things we actually did do this last term is we did increase our funding to public schools, and we reinstituted some municipal aid to towns to help with the downshifting problem that Mike Edgar was talking about. And it didn't go far enough, but it was a step. And we need to take more steps in that direction because it continues to be an issue, as you all know. And we also did a great deal of things on things like PFAS contamination, on mechanisms to enable broadband communication to spread a little more. And then we also did a whole range of legislation in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we repealed the death penalty. Thank you, Renny Cushing. But what I really want to talk about are the other things that we voted for. That was vetoed by Governor Sununu. So we passed an independent redistricting commission, automatic voter registration, a family medical leave program, a minimum wage increase, workers' protection, environmental and health protections, protective orders for vulnerable adults, clean energy provisions, and we streamlined government operations. And all of those bills, many of them bipartisan, were vetoed by Governor Sununu. So what I am asking activists to do is to not only send us another wonderful team of representatives, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we need to veto Governor Sununu. And he's got a nice line in appearing to be really congenial and pleasant, and he's got an even nicer line in saying things in such a way that everybody hears what they want to hear. So he's got an incredible approval rating, and all of us need to communicate that we need a new governor. And of course, we also need a veto-proof majority in the House of Representatives. And to do that, we are going to need to re-elect or elect for the first time Renny Cushing and Mike Edgar and Katherine Harake, I hope I got that right, and Tom Loughman and Elaine Andrews-Ahearn, and make sure that we keep the House, increase our margins so that we can get over that hump of the governor's veto. But we really, 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 if you want the House of Representatives and the state Senate to be effective, we really, really, really need a new governor. And all of that depends on you and your continued efforts to communicate with people who aren't paying as much attention as you are. The last thing I'd like to do is just give a huge shout out to the current delegation and to all House representatives who, when the world turned upside down and we were stuck having to go and meet in an ice arena with the people with the masks and the people who couldn't wear the masks and the people who wouldn't wear the masks, and all of that nonsense really stepped up to the plate and kept things going. And the other thing that people need to be aware of is the huge effort that state reps made while we were all on hiatus to connect their constituents with the many programs or lack of programs or issues, efforts that were being made. You know, when another program got up and running, the governor says, oh, we've got a great program. But the people who connected their constituents with that program and helped them through the process were your state reps. And they did a lot of that, and they did it for everybody, because once they're represented, their politics are democratic, but their representation is everybody. And so they have just done an amazing amount of work, and I want to thank all of them and thank all of you, and keep on keeping on. And back to you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. We appreciate your service and everything that you and Speaker Shurtleff are doing to help move our state forward. Not only did we elect 4 Democrats as our state representatives in 2018, we sent to Concord someone who represents an important segment of our community that is not always well understood and represented in Concord these days: young working families. The average age of state representatives is about 62 years old. The challenges they faced raising a family 25 to 30 years ago are different than those today. And that's why it's so important that we have Tom Loughman in Concord. So here to share a few words with us, and also to introduce our candidates for governor. Well, no, I'm sorry, he's not going to be introducing our candidates for governor, but is Tom Loughman. Tom.
Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. Good afternoon, New Hampshire Democrats. It's so great to be with you today in what form we can. A friend told me that brevity is the soul of wit, so I'm going to try to keep that in mind as I share some of my thoughts leading into this election. You know, for the past several years, we've seen how indispensable integrity and decency is to good government, leadership, and public service. I'm proud to be a Democrat. We know that government plays an essential role in our lives. Republicans, on the other hand, like to say that government can't do anything right. And if elected, they make damn sure of it. They rip the battery out and complain the car doesn't work. Also, they can sell the car for parts to the highest bidder. And that's true in our healthcare system and in other ways, and we've seen the threat to our postal service. As Teddy Roosevelt once said, our government is us. We are the government, you and I. Our government is what we make it. It is as good and effective as the people who lead and operate it. We must not elevate people that don't believe in the essential role of good, smart, and efficient government. Now more than ever, we see the consequences of a government failing to do its job. It's important to recognize that the answer to bad government is not less government, it's better government. Accountable, efficient, just. We're at a turning point in this nation's history. The fragilities of our healthcare, education, and economic systems have been laid bare. Pandemic has accelerated changes in our way of life, the way we work, the way we care for and educate our children. We need the very best and brightest to translate our values into new policies and ideas that help every Granite Stater and every American, so that each of us has the opportunities to reach our full potential, and so that America can realize its too. So thank you all so much for your efforts to help us win big up and down the ticket this November, so that we can hold accountable the most corrupt and incompetent administration of our time and make America good again. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So we heard Representative Weber speak about Chris Sununu and the fact that he's vetoed more pieces of legislation in 2 years than any other governor in recent New Hampshire history. And why has he done that? Quite frankly, because he can. Because we do not have a veto-proof majority in the New Hampshire House and Senate. But in vetoing those bills, he has defied the wishes and aspirations of the majority of voters in New Hampshire. And that's why it's so important that we vote him out of office this November. Luckily, we have two very strong and experienced candidates running for the Democratic nomination. And we're very fortunate that they're both with us today. First up is Senate Majority Leader Dan Feltus. I've asked Dan to speak for 10 minutes. He has 10 minutes. He can speak or he can ask some questions. Dan, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And it's great to see everybody virtually. Great to see Lucy Weber, my friend. And thanks to Renny and Tom and Mike and Pat for all the great work you've done at the State House. Look, I can tell you as a majority leader of the state Senate, the singular obstacle to meaningful and inclusive change and progress for all our families, all our communities, and the state of New Hampshire is Chris Sununu. And with your help, we're going to beat Chris Sununu this fall. We're going to do that working together. I live in the south end of Concord on Hope Avenue with my wonderful wife, Erin, our two amazing daughters, Iris and Josie, our two dogs, Franklin and Roosevelt. And I have a distinctly different perspective and background than the current governor. You see, my dad wasn't governor. My brother wasn't a U.S. senator, and I was never gifted a ski resort. My dad worked in a furniture factory for 45 years, the same one doing roughly the same job day in and day out in an unair-conditioned furniture factory. My mom, she did part-time jobs, including the night shift, while raising 4 kids. And the gifts they gave to me were the values of hard work, honesty and integrity, and looking out for everybody, especially those left out and left behind. Those are the values I've lived my entire career, right out of law school, not taking a job as a corporate attorney, working in legal aid at New Hampshire Legal Assistance for about a decade, representing low to middle income families all across this state, protecting survivors of domestic and sexual violence, giving them safety and security and housing, helping senior citizens, including assisted living facilities, fighting for veterans who have fought for us, for the VA benefits they're entitled to, and looking out for people who fell through the cracks during the last economic crisis, the Great Recession. So many of the people who fell through the cracks then are falling through the cracks now, once again in COVID. In the state Senate for 3 terms, and as your majority leader, fought on all the issues and values that we all believe in, getting a lot done. Working together on clean water, made significant progress. Lead negotiator on Medicaid expansion in the Senate, got that done, reauthorized. Prescription drug relief, among many others, but all too often, as Lucy just mentioned, bumping up against the same obstacle, Chris Sununu and his record-setting 79 vetoes, 65 of which had bipartisan support. 65. Working together with people on the Zoom, we garnered coalitions, bipartisan coalitions on critical issues, everything from universal background checks to an independent bipartisan redistricting commission to paid family and medical leave insurance, something I've led on and was vetoed. Not only vetoed, auctioned off at a fundraiser to the partisan fundraiser to the highest bidder. 14 pieces of clean energy legislation that I've led on, vetoed. We're talking addiction treatment services, vetoed. A whole darn budget vetoed. But at least on that, and Lucy alluded to it, we stuck to it, and we ended up delivering the biggest public school education budget in state history, securing $140 million in new education funding for our schools, our communities, doing disparity aid for property poor school districts, finally doing full-day kindergarten, untying kindergartners from Keno, and treating them like any other grade schooler. It used to be that kindergartners got 50% of the support of other grade schoolers. And the rationale from our Republican colleagues was that they're half as tall as other grade schoolers. I'm kidding, that was a joke. It doesn't come through as well on Zoom. In any event, I happen to believe the best investments that we can make as a society are the investments we make in our kids. They're Iris and Josie's future. They're our collective future, and they deserve a foundation for success and opportunity that's as strong as the granite under our soil. This is about building a bigger and better and brighter future for everybody, and it's about getting out of this mess in a way that works for working people and working families who are struggling and taking it on the chin. That's what this election's about. That's what this whole thing is about, Hampton Democrats. And we're well positioned to win all of this because, you know what? We're on the right side and we're looking out for people who are being left out and left behind. And Chris Sununu is not. Even recently advocating for corporate immunity for corporations who put their workers at risk in COVID-19. Vetoing paid family and medical leave insurance again. Calling it, in his words, vacation, not once, not twice, but 3 different times. Well, you know what? Hampton Democrats working together this fall, we're going to give Chris Sununu a permanent vacation. We're going to do that, working together. And when we do it, we're going to get back to the values of the folks on this Zoom call. Granite State values, that fundamental belief that we are all in this together. That in order to move New Hampshire forward, we can't afford to leave anyone behind. And we fight to lift one another up, not tear one another down, and fight to include more people in our democracy and economy, not exclude them. And this has to be a relief and recovery effort that works for everybody, not just those at the top, not just folks who happen to have the governor's cell phone number. Everybody matters, everybody counts in our democracy and economy, and we need your help. We need your help. We got to win this thing. I respectfully ask for your vote, but more than anything, I respectfully ask for your ongoing activism. Everything you say and do counts and makes a difference. It makes an impact, especially right now. I'm reminded on the quote on activism from Bobby Kennedy and then apartheid South Africa when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but each time someone stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. And through many acts of kindness and activism, those ripples can turn into waves, and those waves can shake down the greatest walls of intolerance and injustice that still exist. That quote on activism, it was true then, it is true now. It is more true now. We need you. We need you from now until November 3rd and beyond. Because the campaigns on the issues that all matter to all of us, especially right now in COVID, are going to last beyond this election. But we got to win this election first, and we need you. So let's go out there. Let's win this thing. Don't believe the pundits. We can win this thing. It's not impossible. Nothing about the history of New Hampshire has been about impossible. I don't believe in that word. It's not in my vocabulary. It's not in yours. Let's go win this thing, and I'm confident we will not just win up and down the ballot. We're going to finally move New Hampshire forward for everybody. So thank you so much, Hampton Democrats, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. We have time for maybe a couple questions. I've got one for you. One of the things that this COVID-19 pandemic has exposed are some of the long-standing economic and social injustices that have existed. You know, things like people not being able to live on the minimum wage, housing problems, healthcare insurance being dependent on having a job. I mean, what are some of the things that, you know, you want to see us do in New Hampshire to address that?
Well, thank you, Chris. And we cannot separate the economic consequences from the public health. They're mutually intertwined. And look, we saw a governor that vetoed legislation to protect homeowners from foreclosure. We saw a governor that, as I mentioned, vetoed paid family and medical leave insurance. And we saw a governor that vetoed reinstated an increase in the minimum wage. We got to get to $15 an hour. And so let me just be clear. There are so many economic consequences right now that working people and working families are facing, including the absence of rapid testing affecting the ability to get back into childcare or schools. We got a governor who made no reopening plan on schools. And it's not enough to just criticize the governor for not doing that. You have to put forward a plan. So we did. Only campaign to put forward a plan on reopening. We call it Live Free and Learn Safe. You can go look at it online. We need public health standards. Sununu just punted everything to the local level, just like Trump. It's no wonder he calls himself, in his own words, a Trump guy through and through, unquote. Those are his words, believe them. So Chris, we gotta make sure we look out for ordinary people. People like Carl and Pauline Johnson, who I represented when I was a legal aid lawyer. They were living in the home of their dreams. and the economic crisis, the last one hit, and they got a foreclosure notice because they lost their job, fell behind bills, and got foreclosed on by a Wall Street bank. Represented them, fought back against that Wall Street bank, saved their home. Those are the people. Those are the people, Chris, that are falling through the cracks right now. That's what this election's about. This is what it's about for me. It's making sure we look out for those folks. We get out of this mess in a way that works for ordinary people. We can do that. Basic common sense economic policies. Looking out for ordinary people, not those at the top, not corporate special interests, of which Chris Sununu does. We got to look out for ordinary people. That's what I've done my entire career. That's what I'll do if I have the honor and privilege of serving as your next governor.
Okay, great. Thank you, Senator, and good luck to you on September 8th.
You got it. Take care, everybody. Be well.
Thank you. Okay, our second candidate for governor, equally experienced, is Executive Councilor Andru Volinsky. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm not with Chris's brisket there in the back of his photo. So let's start here. I'm very excited to share with you that last Saturday we were endorsed by the State Employees Union, 9,000 members. The week before, we were endorsed by the 17,000 member NEA New Hampshire Union, both after very inclusive democratic processes. Those are big steps for us. But look, it remains that we are in crisis. It's COVID, it's economic, it's healthcare, it's climate change, it's racial injustice. Now is the time for bold ideas and courageous leadership. Now is the time to break the bonds of the Republican rhetoric that has held us back since the time of Bill Loeb and Mel Thompson. Look, many of you know that I was the Claremont school funding lawyer. I organized a team of volunteer lawyers that convinced the Supreme Court to recognize for the first time in our state's history a right to a state-funded public education. That was a bold idea, but for lack of courageous leadership, we've never fulfilled the promise of Claremont, and we still haven't today. So we tell people that the last budget was the best education budget in history, but it came after 3 years of budget cuts that totaled more than $26 million. It came after 12 years of no building aid. And before that progressive budget and after that progressive budget, New Hampshire remained 50th, worst in the nation in state support for public education. We can't continue to support the busted local property tax system on which we rely, that makes seniors to worry about whether they can stay out of their homes, that has taxpayers pay 1, 2, 3, 4 times their fair share of local taxes, that has the quality of a child's education depend on where she lives, and that keeps young families and working families out of their homes because the property taxes are too high. Look, you know I was the Claremont lawyer. What you may not know is I came to it very directly and from some personal experience. I grew up in a mill town where the mill failed. My dad was a mechanic and a maintenance man and a union shop steward. My mother was a homemaker. I'm the only one in my family to go to college. I paid for law school by working as a carpenter. I understand the importance of educational opportunity. For many, it's a question of economic justice. In our larger cities, it's a question of racial justice. Manchester and Nashua, although their needs are the highest, spend the least on their school children. That is not a formula for success. That will not allow New Hampshire to move forward. That's why I will not take the pledge. We need to have this adult conversation. We need to have it based on facts, and we need to find a better way to fund our schools than based on our local property tax system. But that's not the only issue facing us. Climate change is upon us. We need to move aggressively. The time for half measures is long gone. I happen to be a grandfather. I think about the future that we're leaving our children and our children's children. That's why I was so adamantly opposed to the Liberty Utilities Granite Bridge fracked gas $400 million pipeline that was scheduled to go in the Southeast. That's a big point of difference between Dan and me. Dan signed on to support that pipeline, got $1,734 from Liberty Utilities and campaign contributions. I refuse to support the pipeline, and I don't take fossil fuel campaign contributions. But look, we have to beat Chris Sununu. And on the executive council, I've shown that I'm capable of leading that successful resistance. We turned back the nomination of Gordon MacDonald to be Chief Justice because he wasn't qualified and because he had a documented history of antagonism towards reproductive rights. We turned back 3 different climate change deniers that Sununu nominated for important state posts. And with the help, I'm going to say it, give him credit, with the help of Russ Prescott, the 3 Democrats and Russ refused to allow Chris Sununu to take any money out of the state treasury until he explained where the money was going. That's how we know about those insider, no bid, sweetheart contracts that Sununu's done. We have our work cut out for us. I hope you'll learn more about us. I hope you'll join us. Go to VolinskyNH.com. I ask for your support in the September 8th election. Let's take a question or two.
Great. Yeah, I've got one question here from someone. How would you replace the state property tax, or what would you replace the state property tax with to fund education?
Yeah, so I think the question is about the local property tax.
No, I think it's specifically the state property tax.
Yeah, the state property tax doesn't really exist. It's a $2 tax that doesn't produce any money for any school district other than the one in which it's imposed. So the problem is the local property tax, which has rates from $2 in Newington to $26 in Claremont. You know, I think that's got to be our focus. I have set some goals. One is to reduce the local property tax for the majority of New Hampshire citizens. Second, to have everyone pay their fair share, not 2, 3, and 4 times their fair share, and to exempt either the income or the beginning values of homes for the poorest people in our community. You do those things as a legislature, I'll work with you to sign a plan that gets us a fair system to pay for our schools for the first time in this state's history.
I see another question from someone following up on your comments about the Granite Bridge. If we're not going to use natural gas to meet our energy needs, how do we make sure that we've got energy independence in the future?
Yeah, so my goal is to get us to energy independence, carbon neutral by 2030. And within the first 30 days of my administration, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I would form the Agency for Climate, Energy, and the Environment. They would be working on a citizen-informed plan to get us to carbon neutral by 2030. Dan's got a plan. It doesn't get us there for another 20 years after that. We don't have that kind of time. I would focus on renewables. I would use conservation measures in all of the state buildings, all of the state school buildings. There are 488 of them. I'd put solar on every rooftop that could take it. New Hampshire gets 1% of its power from solar. Vermont, by contrast, gets 12%. I would help people who can't afford it to get into housing with heat pumps and solar combinations to heat their homes. The company line from Liberty Utilities is that we have to commit to 20 years of fracking in order to keep poor people heated in the winter. That is the company line, and we should reject it as such.
Okay. And then lastly, I think you may have heard my question to Dan. Again, the pandemic has exposed a lot of long-standing economic and social injustices. How do we address some of those in New Hampshire?
Well, I've been talking to the people who are really subject to food insecurity, worried about evictions, worried about their income. So I start with the property tax system. We need to make that fair. That's a big drain on people's income. You pay it with income, you don't pay it with property. I would increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I would raise the cap on unemployment benefits. Right now, we're lowest in New England, and we make no allowance for dependents. So it's $427, no matter what you made beforehand, no matter how many people you have to feed. I would start there. Federally, I kind of like Andrew Yang's approach with a basic supplemental income. I would advocate for that. I would fund real Main Street relief programs, not what Sununu's done with a $20 million in annual revenues. That's not a Main Street business. That's one of his corporate cronies. I would do that directly, focusing on businesses that are in the small to medium size range. I would get broadband broadly throughout our state, and I'd work on renewable energy so that we could bring down energy costs in our state.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for your time. And good luck to you as well on the campaign trail and on September 8th.
It's good to see everyone. Thank you for having me. Be well and stay safe.
Thank
Take
you
care.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Just hang on for a second. Little technical issue here. Okay, here we go. We are very lucky, and I think all of us are very proud to have Robert Renny Cushing as one of our state representatives. Not only is he the dean of our state representative delegation, but he's the heart and conscience of the Hampton Democrats. He has been a tireless champion for justice and for equality and for Hampton for many years, and we need to make sure that we send him back. And here to share a few thoughts is Renny Cushing.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everybody. I just want to give a big shout out to the entire leadership of our Hampton Democratic Town Committee. And I can't help but think that this is about the time where I would be pushing up on the tents at the Trotzers to have the water dump out so we could continue with our barbecue. I miss that very much in ways I can't begin to explain. You know, I tell people this summer marks 100 years since my grandparents came from Manchester to Hampton Beach on their honeymoon and never left. And I know that everything that I am is been formed here in the town of Hampton and in my family home. And I try to be somebody when I act as a public servant to honor that. When I go to Concord, I take Hampton with me. I can never leave it behind. I'm proud of some of the work that we've done this past couple of years. I'm here frustrated because the governor has vetoed two important pieces of legislation that I carried. One relating to vulnerable adults, the idea that we can't have a protective order to prevent vulnerable adults from being abused, neglected, or exploited, that somehow the governor refuses to allow that tool to be put in place. Makes me really angry because, like many of you, I have my family members who are vulnerable, and there's nothing more basic responsibility of government than to protect the health and safety of its citizens. I'm also very frustrated that he vetoed a bill that would provide for medical monitoring when people get exposed to toxins, as has happened in a number of places here in the state of New Hampshire. You can't ask people to wait until the damage manifests itself. You have to be able to provide so that there could be monitoring of the body to see what happens so that you can take appropriate actions. The governor's veto message looked like it was written by the polluters and the insurance industry. And it's an outrage that he vetoed that, and we have to go forward. And I'm hopeful in a couple of weeks we'll be able to overturn that. There are a few things that I care about that I want to work on next session in Concord if I'm reelected. One relates to the ongoing scandal. For 30 years, we've had a practice of taking people who have severe mental illness, and rather than provide treatment in a therapeutic setting, we put them inside the walls of the New Hampshire State Prison. People with mental illness should not be treated like they are criminals. And I've been working hard to try to get a secure forensic hospital to treat that population. We're partway there. I want to finish that work for the next 2 years because I want to stop criminalizing people with mental illness. I also had another bill that didn't make it this year that, while I'm glad we have established PFAS standards for our public drinking water systems, ironically, people can walk into a grocery store and buy bottled water that exceeds the standards that would be allowed to come out of the tap at our homes. And there's nothing more precious than safe drinking water for us. Anyways, I'm going to stop right there, say thank you. I appreciate everyone's support in the past. I would appreciate your support in the future. It's been a joy working with Pat and Mike and Tom and Senator Sherman. I hope we can do that. And I think Chris wants me to kind of segue into an introduction of our senior U.S. Senator. Am I correct? Yeah. One of the things that we're fortunate of is to have kind of a piece of living history or groundbreaking. In my lifetime, I can remember that there had never been a female executive counselor, a female governor, female member of Congress, female U.S. Senator. But one of the people who broke down so many barriers is Jeanne Shaheen. I've known Jeanne for 4 decades anyhow, maybe a little bit longer. I don't want to make either one of us feel that old. But I remember when she first ran for state senate and pulled an upright. I remember when she had the courage to stand up and run and win as our first female governor and govern with discipline, with vision. Been very proud of her as she broke that barrier down and became the first woman in the United States Senate from the state of New Hampshire. We really need to re-elect her. She works every day for the people of the state of New Hampshire, and I know we're all going to get behind her and beat back whatever nut job it is that emerges as her opponent. And are we going to show a little home video, Chris?
Yep. Senator Shaheen wanted to be here, but couldn't make it. She sent a video. I think I figured out what the problem was before. So we're going to try again, and we'll all keep our fingers crossed here. So just bear with me. Okay, come on. Here we go. Wait a minute. Hang on. There we go. Oh, maybe not. There we go.
It's no sound, Chris.
Take your earplugs out.
Well, clearly I have some Zoom learning that I need to be doing. I apologize for that. I will make sure that everybody gets that that video as well. My bad. We do have with us Sarah Silverstein, who is a member of Senator Shaheen's staff. And Sarah, maybe you can cover for me and share a few words about what the campaign is hoping to do this summer and fall.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also try to share the video if you would like. If you want to give it one more shot.
Sure, that, you're just going to make me look like even, more incompetent, but yeah.
I think you'd have to allow me screen sharing.
I think I did that.
All right. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
I did.
Okay.
If you watch the convention, you know that we can get a lot done virtually. It's not like in person. I wish I were there campaigning with you, and we were at the Hampton picnic that I've so enjoyed going to in the past. But we know just how important it is to connect with each other and what's at stake in this election. We've seen the last 3.5 years, the leadership from Donald Trump. We know that he can't, as Michelle Obama said, that he doesn't have the capacity to do what needs to be done in this country, to get the coronavirus pandemic under control, to put people back to work who are suffering because of the economic fallout, to address the racial inequities in our society. What Donald Trump has done is to exacerbate all of these problems. We need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We need their leadership to come in, to put in place competent people who can make this government work again for Americans. And to do that, each and every one of us has to do everything we can to make a difference in this election. New Hampshire is going to be critical. It's one of the toss-up states, and we need those 4 electoral votes for the top of the ticket. But we also need to hold on to my Senate seat if we're going to flip the Senate to Democrat. We need to hold on to Chris Pappas and Annie Custer to make sure we keep a Democratic House. We need to keep our majorities in the State House and State Senate. And we need, of course, to elect a Democratic governor in the corner office. So we have a lot of work to do. And the efforts that you're making virtually, connecting with people on your social networks, talking to friends and relatives and neighbors is making such a huge difference. And if each and every one of us continue in those efforts, if we reach out to everybody we know, if we make sure that people understand that they can vote absentee, vote by mail, they need to get their absentee ballot in plenty of time, because we know that Donald Trump and his administration are messing with the Postal Service in a way that is designed to slow down mail and interrupt those absentee ballots to suppress the vote. We know they're trying to keep students from voting. We've seen what Chris Sununu and his former Republican legislature tried to do to keep students from voting. But we can make a difference, each and every one of us. And that's why you are so important, and I so appreciate what you're doing. If we make sure that everybody who wants to vote in this election is able to vote, we are going to win this race. We are going to take back the White House. We are going to flip the Senate, and we are going to hold on to our majorities in New Hampshire. So thank you. Keep it up. Keep working hard, and together we will do this.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Of course, glad that worked.
You'll have to give me an offline lesson on how to make sure this works. So
I will. I'm still learning Zoom technology as well. So kind of my fingers were crossed with that one. Okay. Great. Well, thanks everyone. I'm super happy to be here. And the video got cut off a bit when we were filming it, but the senator really wishes she could be there in person. And thank you, Chris and the Hampton Dems, for putting together this picnic, this virtual picnic. I recently started as regional political director on the campaign, and I will be covering Hampton and Rockingham County. So if you need anything, I'll put my information in the chat. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas about what we could be doing in the area, I'd love to hear them. So don't hesitate to reach out. Before I hop off, I'll make sure you all have my contact information. And I'm sure Chris can provide that for you as well if you need it. I was an organizer in New Hampshire in the primary, so I'm super excited to be back, even if most of the events are virtual. It's still nice to be back in the Granite State. The senator has been back in the state for recess now for a week. Before that, she was in Washington working on getting COVID packages passed. And last week, when she was back in the state, she was endorsed by 7 mayors across the state. We had an event in Dover where the mayors of Somersworth, Dover, and Rochester endorsed her. And then we had an event in Manchester where she was endorsed by the mayor of Manchester, Nashua, Concord, and Laconia. So it was a great show of support from local communities for her leadership in the Senate and in New Hampshire. And she also was able to participate in some pre-convention events last week. I don't know if any of y'all were able to join, but despite it being virtual, it was still a really great way to bring everyone together. And I thought the convention was very well done. And my last big update is really that we have yard signs now in the state. And they are in your area being stored at Chris's house. So if you need a Pappas or a Shaheen yard sign, you can pick it up from Chris's house. If you would like to store yard signs yourself, or if you know anyone who'd be willing to store, please let me know, and we'll make sure you can have some yard signs as well to give out to folks. That's our big push right now. We want to get these up and out across the state, show our support for Senator Shaheen. Those are my big updates, and again, I'm super excited to be working with you all, and hopefully maybe we will meet in person one day, but I will drop all my information in the chat, and don't hesitate to email me, give me a call, text me if you have any questions or ideas.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much for the work you're doing and the technical support. I certainly appreciate that. So thank you very much.
No worries.
One of the things that Senator Shaheen alluded to